You are Locked On Coogs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Talk about it in 1 second. Before we get too far, I do want to remind you that today's show is brought to you by our buddies over at Prize Picks. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the daily fantasy app where making the right call can actually pay off. You and I make decisions every day. We talk sports every day, but Prize Picks being right means cashing in football back. Prize Picks is the simplest and fastest way to get in on the action. Just pick more or less on a 2 to 6 player rotation. You can turn your takes into real prizes all in less than 60 seconds. You think that the Texans are going to have more than or less than this many touchdowns? CJ Stroud more than or less than this many passing touchdowns? More than or less than across the board? Hopefully more than last week. Side note, hopefully more than last week. Whatever the case may be, you can turn those takes into real cash. Download the PrizePicks app today. Use code LOCKEDONCollege for $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONCollege for $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 play. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. Today's show is also brought to you by our buddies over at FanDuel. The NFL season's here. Wrapping up week 2, FanDuel is making sure you are ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if that bet hits, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Do you have a beat on what's going to happen in the Texans game? Do you have some idea of, again, CJ Stroud, where's he going to go with the football? Who's catching the darn thing if it's not Nico Collins? Go to FanDuel and get on the action before the game, after kickoff with some live action, get some parlay, put things together. All of it in one spot. So if you're ready to play, download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Power Ranger Locked On Coogs here. And listen, Houston is 3-0. Life is good. It's a bye week. You can't lose those. Those are all good things for the Houston Cougar program. But I also want to try and, as we get away from the game was Friday night. It's now during the week. You're at the water cooler, talking with the Cougs, talking with your friends. What can you not get too high on? What can you not get too low on? Listen, things I'm trying to taper myself with, reasons I'm not getting too high. The injuries are accumulating. Depth is about to get tested. You're on a bye with no Big 12 game until October 4th. You might kind of get some secrecy out of the program as far as who's dealing with what injuries are where, and what's going on. Listen, even the Oregon State game in the middle between now and then, you have bye week, Oregon State, and then Tech. Oregon State is over right now, and they play Oregon between now and then. Houston might not give you a lot of information going into that Oregon State game, and they might keep it plain Jane vanilla in that one and really not give anything away. You play Tech the next week. That's when you want to have every advantage you can. Injuries are accumulating, and I don't know that we fully understand all of them. And I think that is something to not get too high on. That was noticeable last week on Friday night. I had Drake over Locked On Big 12 host who was sitting at home with COVID watching Quad Box, and I think I can say that. Can I say that? Ooh, I hope I can say that. And he is texting like, Parker, who do they have left? Like, they're gonna go pull somebody out of the stands and hit him some pads, man. I don't know. Like they're gonna figure out they're gonna beat Colorado, like whatever. And it wasn't quite that dire, but it was bad there for a second. And so injuries accumulating gives me pause, makes me make sure I don't get too high, because like that is part of the season, right? That's a part of the marathon that is a college football season. Look, the passing game, nothing keeping me from getting too high. The passing game is still a work in progress. There are flashes, absolutely. Things I like, things that they execute. When it looks good, it looks good. But the leading receiver last week had 5 catches. He had 1 in the 2 previous games combined. It was the first game of the season that the leading receiver wasn't a tight end. Now, Coach L is a tight end in position title, I guess. He functionally feels like more like a wide receiver, but only 2 wide receivers had catches last week. And this was a faster start than they've had in the past, but it certainly wasn't a fast start. The offense is still coming together. You got a new quarterback. you got a new OC, you got a bunch of new offensive linemen, a bunch of new skill guys, and even some of the guys you thought you were bringing back. We'll see how long the Ndukwe injury is. Rashawn Sanford's out for the year. Some of those guys are having, with their own injuries, to take a backseat to new guys, and your new guys are also gelling, and so all of that is such a work in progress. I'm like, I don't want to get too out in front of my skis on this because, well, it feels good to be 3-0. I gotta remember, like, listen, be rational, Parker. Be rational, Parker. Be rational, Parker. And last but not least, as far as things to be rational about, things that keeping me from getting too high, Colorado was absolutely shocked, surprised, insert adjective or whatever, to see Connor Wegman run. And they did not, apparently they didn't watch the high school tape. I don't know. They didn't think Connor Wegman was going to be in his legs. Their defensive box, their alignments did not account for it. And he completely took advantage. Houston completely took advantage of that. And that's awesome. That's awesome to see. I love running quarterbacks. If you never heard that, people actually probably figured that out about me watching Zion Chris and Donovan Smith and all those guys. But I enjoy a running quarterback. I think it makes the game more fun. I think it makes the defense, puts them in a bad spot. And I want to crap on the scouting department of Colorado for not knowing that. But that's in the past. As I look at the future, you're not going to pull that over on anybody, right? No one else is going to be surprised to see Connor Wegman run this season in the same kind of way, right? I'm not going to get my phone blowing up like, when did he learn how to do this, from random people, just like you probably did too. I act like I'm the only one with a phone. You also have a phone. People text you about the game, I'm sure. No one's going to be surprised to see him running around. Further, given his injury history, I don't know that I want him getting 17 carries every week. 17 was fun. It was a lot. He left that one dude in the dust, and he took the jock strap, the ankles, all whatever you want to call it, from that dude he juked out at the 5-yard line or whatever it was. But and I told you on Friday night, but Connor, that kid had a family. You didn't do him like that on national television. It took that kid's ankles, and that was great. And I want a lot of that, but I don't need to see 17 runs a game necessarily all the time from a guy that has had bad injury luck, knock on wood. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. Now, reasons I'm not going to let myself get too low. Boogie Johnson quintupled, and make sure that's a word, his catches after last game. Okay, yes, they went from 1 to 5. But, like, I would point out that things felt more in rhythm. They felt more intentional. They were, like, looking for him. He's clearly finding his spots with Connor. There was one comeback where Connor was flush to his right, and it looked like scramble rules, and he found Boogie coming back to the ball in a way that was like, okay, those guys have played together enough now. They're learning each other. Amari Thomas, same kind of thing, right? Another reason not letting myself get too low on this game, okay, they don't played so many guys that didn't play this. Stacy Sneed, man. Look, I say this, it feels like every year, early in the year, he continues to prove me wrong. I said, like, one of the first episodes of Locked on Coogs, I think that guy should be playing slot. I think he's out of position. I still think he'd be a great slot. Every single year he does something like where it proves me wrong. And he didn't have a ton of carries and a ton of yards, but he clearly is finding a way to fit his running style into this offense. And it's working. It's working. Now, I would also say the last but not least thing about me trying to not get too low after this game is that, yes, injuries are adding up, right? Offensive line specifically. And Colorado did ramp up the blitz at the right tackle once we had a third-string guy in that position. But it didn't feel like they had less time to throw than they did in a bunch of games last year when they won 3 Big 12 games. I think that, honestly, there's, you want your guys healthy. You want everyone to come back 100%. But I think that the resolve of the team and to play through that on Friday night is honestly a sign of depth that we hadn't had in a minute. And that's a good thing. And that's why I'm not going to let myself get too low about it. Yes, guys are getting hurt, but yes, backups are stepping up. And so, we want to get healthy as fast as possible and be really healthy when guys come back. It's kind of nice that, like, there's some guys that just come in and play, and it's fine. Fine, relatively speaking, obviously. Now, be breaking things down throughout the week here at Locked On Cougs. We got some basketball stuff to talk about because it's bye week, so we got a break from football for a second. But obviously, we also want to start talking about Oregon State and Texas Tech and the upcoming opponents in the football season. As recruiting news breaks, we'll be here, obviously, to break it down as well. Locked On Cougs, your number one podcast for everything each and every day on the Houston Cougars. Hit subscribe at the best you know, we're live, Locked On Cougs, primarily Locked On Podcast Network. That means your team every day. Go Cougs.